Hello, and welcome to the Shadowverse Chronicles presentation of this original story, The Eternal Slumber Part 3 by the Chipmunk Storyteller. So please like the story and relax.
And now the conclusion to the Eternal Slumber. Sarah's lungs screamed for air as the Zalkri's invisible grip tightened. Her vision blurred, darkness creeping in at the edges. Through the haze, she saw Asmar lunge at the creature, his hands blazing with otherworldly energy. The Zalkri shrieked, a sound that threatened to shatter Sarah's mind. It released her, and she crumpled to the ground, gasping. "Run!" Asmar shouted, grappling with the alien. "Find the weapon!" Sarah scrambled to her feet, adrenaline surging through her veins. She sprinted down the corridor, the sounds of battle fading behind her. Her scientific mind reeled, struggling to process the impossible reality she now faced. The passageway opened into a vast chamber. At its center stood a towering obelisk, covered in the same strange hieroglyphs as Asmar's coffin. Sarah approached it cautiously, her hand hovering over its surface. A thunderous crash echoed from the corridor. Sarah whirled to see Asmar stumble into the chamber, his golden skin marred with black, oil-like streaks. "Hurry," he gasped. "We don't have much time." Sarah's fingers brushed the obelisk. It hummed to life, lines of energy pulsing beneath her palm. "How do we activate it?" Asmar staggered to her side. "It requires a sacrifice, a life freely given." Sarah's blood ran cold. "You mean..." "Yes," Asmar nodded grimly. "One of us must die to power the weapon." The chamber shuddered as something massive struck the entrance. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone. Asmar gripped Sarah's shoulders. "Listen carefully. When I merge with the obelisk, you must recite the activation phrase. Repeat after me. Nectar Vral Korshi Mat." Sarah's tongue stumbled over the alien syllables. "Nectar Vral Korshi Mahat." "Again," Asmar insisted. She repeated it again and again until the words flowed smoothly. The entrance exploded inward. The Zalkri glided through the debris, its form shifting and writhing like a nightmare given flesh. Asmar shoved Sarah behind him. "Remember the phrase. No matter what happens, don't stop reciting it." He pressed his hand against the obelisk. Energy surged around him, lifting him off the ground. He threw his head back and screamed as his body began to dissolve into pure light. Sarah's voice shook as she began the chant. "Nectar Vral Korshi Ma'at." The Zalkri lunged forward, its form elongating impossibly. Sarah dodged, never stopping her recitation. "Nectar Vral Korshi Ma'at." Tendrils of darkness lashed out, slicing her arm. Sarah bit back a cry of pain, focusing on the words. "Nectar Vral Korshi Mahat." The obelisk pulsed brighter with each repetition. The Zalkri shrieked, its body contorting as it tried to reach Sarah. She scrambled backwards, her back pressed against the far wall. "Nectar Vral Korshi Mahat." Asmar's form had almost entirely merged with the obelisk. His eyes, now orbs of pure energy, locked onto Sarah's. His voice echoed in her mind. "Once more." Sarah took a deep breath and shouted the phrase one final time. "Nectar Vral Korshi Mat." The obelisk erupted with blinding light. Sarah shielded her eyes as waves of energy pulsed outward. The Zalkri's screams reached a fever pitch, then abruptly cut off. When the light faded, Sarah lowered her arm. The chamber was empty save for the obelisk, now dark and lifeless. Of the Xalkri and Asma, there was no sign. Sarah approached the obelisk on shaky legs. Her fingers traced the hieroglyphs, still warm to the touch. Asma, she whispered. Silence answered her. A rumble shook the chamber. Without the alien technology to sustain it, the entire complex was collapsing. Sarah ran, her survival instinct kicking in. She navigated the crumbling corridors, barely staying ahead of the cave-ins. She burst out of the hidden entrance, stumbling into the ravine. The night sky above was alight with streaks of fire, alien ships burning up in the atmosphere. Sarah sank to her knees, overwhelmed. They had won, but at what cost? And what would happen now? A sound made her turn. A group of people approached, led by a familiar face. Jake, her assistant from the dig site. "Dr. Chen," he called out. "Thank God you're alive. What happened? The military's gone crazy, talking about some kind of global event." Sarah stood, brushing dust from her clothes. How could she possibly explain what had transpired? Would anyone believe her? As Jake reached her, his eyes widened. "Dr. Chen, your arm. It's glowing." Sarah looked down. Where the Xalkri had struck her, lines of golden energy pulsed beneath her skin. She flexed her fingers, feeling a strange power coursing through her. In that moment, Sarah realized the truth. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. And somehow, she would have to prepare humanity for what was to come. She squared her shoulders and faced Jake. "We need to talk," she said. "The world as we know it has changed, and I'm going to need your help." As the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the African landscape, Sarah Chen stepped forward to meet her destiny and humanity's uncertain future. The end.
Thank you for joining us, and please like and subscribe.